Well, welcome back to another episode. I kind of feel like the quarterback of a football team because in collaboration with Barry, just called a audible. We're going to do part 2 of tools.
I feel like it's like cut, take 55, take 110, cut, take. And they're all good cuts. We just keep going.
I mean, we only got through 2 tools, but they were so impactful. So let's talk about some more tools, Barry, that we can use to change our relationship with money and ourselves and our significant others.
Okay, I'm gonna try and get three in this little segment there. Okay, 3. Okay, and so these tools are things to be practiced over and over and over. They seem really simple when presented, but they're pretty profound when you actually practice them. Okay. And whenever was, at the very beginning of my journey 25 years ago, I was all about the tools and practices because that's what helps me create deeper meaning, more creativity, more playfulness, on and on with my relationship to money. Like that's what I was doing in every other area of my life. So when I decided to take on money as my main topic, obviously it touches on, everything else, right? I knew I needed to just bring in these practices. All right.
So I just want to touch on something that to you is like, duh. But what you're saying is you actually did all these tools.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I am not someone, again, as an Enneagram 4, which we've touched on. I have to try it out. I have to live it. I have to be walking my talk. I tell a lot of stories, and obviously I tell more of my own stories of what I've had to work through and how I used the tools right. So
Exactly.
That's how all these tools were created. I mean, not all of them. A lot of them were created because I needed them. Some of them were certainly created when I started teaching my 3-phase methodology in 2001 in tiny little groups of 10 people. And the first evening, I think I went straight to tell me about your childhood and money, and we just like went so deep, so fast. And I was like, Barry, they're freaking out. They're freezing. Back up, slow down, bring in the somatic tools, bring in the body check-in, bring it slow it down. So along the way, it's not just what I needed, but as I was teaching, I was seeing and reading the room and seeing what was missing, what I left out, things like that. And so would add tools and practices from what I needed and also what I was seeing the community needed as well. Yeah, by teaching the work. Right.
So this kind of ties in to, I think it was our part 2 that we did about the importance of doing our own work. Yeah. And so often when a practitioner approaches this work, it's like, well, give me the formula. Okay, give me the tool so I can go back on Monday morning and do this with my client. With almost complete detachment from experience it themselves and doing it themselves and doing the practice. So I just wanted to bring that out, that these are tools not only for a practitioner's clients, they're probably more importantly for the practitioner or the person.
Equally as important, right? And so we had talked about doing our own money or financial therapy work, more of the money healing work, right? And that to understand our own money story and all of that side by side, all of these tools around money dates and learning a bookkeeping system and values-based bookkeeping and how to make good money decisions are things that are essential. They have been essential in my life. I mean, it's what has helped me feel more confident in my relationship to money. It gives me tools and a foundation to continue to work on myself and fine tune things over and every year. I'm like, okay, what do I need to work on? Do I need a new bookkeeping system? Do I need a new person in my financial support team? Do I, what's going on? And it comes from all these little, very practical practices. Yeah.
Great.
Okay. So
Okay.
this next one, we're going to do briefly, and it's the values-based renaming tool practice. Okay. I've been doing this from day one. Some people love it. Other people like it's not for me, but this was a direct response to everyone was doing values-based investing, 25 years ago that I was seeing. And I wanted values-based bookkeeping. I wanted to be able to look at someone's bookkeeping system and for you to sit down at your own set of books and go, this is me. This is what I'm doing. These are my intentions. I can see my goals. I can see my priorities. I can see what's important to me right here, because there was nothing that was getting me to sit down to do a bookkeeping system, right? And
Right.
so this is one of the ways that I made it more interesting and creative and more meaningful. So I have people identify what their values are, which is an ever-changing ongoing list, right? Even prioritizing them and renaming your categories in your chart of accounts. So if you're doing your own bookkeeping for your personal finances, right? It's renaming. It's renaming mortgage and rent to home, sanctuary, love shack. I mean, you can get out there, but it's also just renaming it so it feels better, or it really represents the deeper meaning there. You can't get so
Right.
deep with rent or mortgage, right? But I've
Right.
had people rename that category and realize like, wow, I'm not living in my sanctuary. I need to move places, right? This is whatever this I'm paying in rent or mortgage, my home does not feel right and good. Something needs to change. I've had people rename debt categories instead of that damn debt, where they're not even looking at the number or coming up with a plan and looking at the finance charges. It's just that damn debt, right? In their mind.
Right. Right.
So let's take some time. What was going on in your life when you accrued that debt? What did you do with that money? Was it an adventure to Italy? Was it to go back to school? Was it startup costs for your business? Was it a health crisis? Right? What was going on? Now, if it was just random consumer addictive spending, that's something, right? But for many people, there's other things going on,
Right.
right? During that, some kind of life transition. So let's name it. I had an accountant rename some medical debt. His wife had cancer. She made it through all the treatments. She survived. And he renamed that debt to like my wife and the love of my life and our time together. And he, an accountant who came from such a traditional background, he was really surprised that just renaming a category like that would not just be so meaningful for him, it just would make the whole thing feel so different,
Yeah,
right?
I can just feel energetically the difference between, yeah, I'm making a stupid payment on
Yes.
this medical debt to,
Yep.
wow, this was the tool, the debt that is giving me my wife today.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Right. Or a lighter one of someone, taking a big trip to Italy and realizing it really changed the course of their life in a positive way. And so, someone I really worked with changed its my big Italian adventure. And from there, she looked at the number of the debt. She looked at the finance charges. She was able to come up with a payment plan that felt reasonable to her. And it was simply by renaming that category instead of like, again, I was stupid, I did this thing, or to,
Mm-hmm.
what did it give you? What did it change? What was going on there on a deeper level? Because for me, it's always deeper. There's always deeper stuff. So I could name so many more examples. There's a lot in my book and all of that. This is one little tool to bring to your bookkeeping. People always say, what about my business? My accountant's going to think I'm crazy. And, some people like in their business, they just put a parentheses around whatever,
Yeah.
and they add a little value to them. And if they just tell their accountant what they're doing, they'll get it. It's fine. So it's more for personal finances and planning. And that's that. That's one little fun tool. Okay. It can
And
be
this
fun.
was the very first thing I identified you with
Yes. I
30
think people
years
used
ago when we first met.
I think people sometimes would think like this is your only trick. Like this is it. There's so much more. This is one teeny one, but for some people, it's really, naming things what words we use is important. It has
Again,
an
what's striking me with with this tool and the two that we talked about last segment is that, as you promised in the beginning, the simplicity
yes.
and the depth.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
how can something like that shift things so deeply?
Yeah.
So it's
Yes.
cool.
Yeah, I'm all about simplicity and depth, right? And I name a lot of things that I think are obvious that we just didn't get growing up in small increments. If you go to a financial planner, they don't teach you all these little steps. They just give you this big plan or tell you how to invest. And I'm like, what? What are all the steps before? So here's one more. Here's one, and this is how to make good money decisions. Now, in order to make good money decisions, people come to me at the beginning of my program, they'll be like, I don't know if I can afford this, right? They don't know what their numbers are. They don't know, right? They don't know what their numbers are. So they don't know how to make a good money decision. And that's something that haunts a lot of people. I don't know how to make good money decisions. And so here's another simple tool, or there's a few of the tools I've already shared are going to go in how to make a good money decision, right? So number one, how to make a good money decision is that I do body check-ins for everything. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to go online shopping and check in with your body and go, oh yeah, I want it. Like, I'm going to, and then, buy. Sometimes when you do a body check-in, you may need to say pause or set up a rule. Like I'm going to give myself a few hours break before I make a decision, or I'm going to give myself 24 hours, right? Or I'm going to check in. Am I hungry? Am I tired? Am I thirsty?
Angry,
Right?
lonely.
Angry. Halt. The halt method
Right.
from the 12-step program, right? It's a great thing to ask yourself in those moments. Also, in my second phase of money practices, you do have to know your numbers. So whether that's someone doing your bookkeeping for you, right? I have a bookkeeper for my business. It's learning a bookkeeping system for yourself, right? So I am going to a whole other step, and then I'll come back to this tool and practice around how to make good money decisions. But in order to make good money decisions, you have to know your numbers. You do. You do. So whatever your thing is, pen and paper, spreadsheets. My husband is loving Tiller HQ right now. QuickBooks, YNAB, Quicken, whatever your thing is, you have to know your numbers. Now, this was bookkeeping for a while, was a practice that I did every day. I would go out in the world, I would save my receipts, I would put them in one of those old cigarette cases and bring them home, and then sit down in front of my QuickBooks, have a money date, light my candles, do the whole thing, and just 5-10 minutes a day, enter in where I spent money, how much came in, what's coming in, what's going out. And that was a practice for me that I did for years. And I'm not as dogmatic that everyone has to do their own bookkeeping, but I will tell you, I learned so much about my own relationship to money.
Yeah.
The amount of awareness and mindfulness that I was able to bring to my patterns, habits, unconscious patterns from practicing bookkeeping, and my husband used to call it a meditation too. That's the only way he would do bookkeeping, is if he saw it as a meditation, right? Because it's not fun really, but you set the timer, you light your candles, you get out your chocolate, you do it for 30 minutes, right? At a time.
And it sure raises your awareness as opposed to somebody else doing your books for you.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I'm right about this, but it's kind of like maybe the difference between reading a book on how to golf and getting out and golfing.
Good metaphor, even though I'm not into golf, but yes, it's a
I'm
good
not
metaphor.
either.
Oh, study. Okay. So, right, you see, like, yes, it's another practice. There are these things to do when you're tending this garden of life. It needs watering, it needs care, right? So yes, it needs bookkeeping. And I did bookkeeping for years on my own, and then I handed over the business stuff to a bookkeeper, and my husband took over our personal. And we still check in though. We still check in we try to check in monthly. Sometimes we go longer and then we come back to what's going on. Like, so that's like, in order to learn how to make good money decisions, you need to know how to do body check-ins. You
Right.
need to know your numbers. So you need to have a bookkeeping system or way to check in, right? And then it's in the moment. This is what I wanted to bring today. So it's like, I guess the third part of making money decisions, body check-ins, knowing your numbers, and number 3, bringing a set of questions with you when you're going to be in a money decision moment. Okay. So these are questions that you can make up in the moment. You can have a list. You can just add to them as you go, right? So for example, if I'm going to do some online shopping, okay, here's my questions. Do I want it? Do I already have one in my closet? Am I going to use this? Will I get the value out of it? Do I have the cash flow for this? Right? So I bring a little set of questions. Am I hungry? Am I tired? Right? Always ask that. That goes back to the body check-in. Now, that's like in a small little clothing shopping moment, right? I always tell the story of when I was at the car dealership and years ago. And we're going to end on time, so don't worry. But
Oh, we got lots of time.
Oh, we got lots of time. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
In the car dealership, we were starting to talk with the sales guy. All of a sudden I notice I'm starting to hyperventilate a little bit. My breathing is starting to go up high. I know something's starting to happen, and I know myself well enough that I need a body check-in. So I say to my husband and the car salesman, excuse me a moment, I'm going to go to the bathroom. I don't say, excuse me a moment, I'm going to go to the bathroom and do a body check-in. But I go to the bathroom, I start doing a body check-in. What's going, just notice what's going on. Where am I noticing it in my body? Start naming the emotion, start sitting with it. Oh, this is me feeling anxiety. This is my version of mild hyperventilating. What's going on here? Oh, I don't like to make quick decisions. Okay. I really don't like it. What does this remind me of? Okay. So I sat in the bathroom for a few moments, noticing, feeling, naming, sitting with the emotion, right? What does it remind me of? And then from there, I said, okay, well, what do I need next? I need to have a little money date with my husband in the car dealership. So I leave the bathroom. I tell my husband we need to have a money date. The car guy goes, okay, I'll leave you in the room. I'll be back in about 20 minutes. We have a money date. And we bring a set of questions that we kind of made up in the moment. So, is this car purchase in alignment with our values? Yeah, it was an electric car, right? It was something my husband had wanted since he was a kid. Do we have the cash flow for this? Yes, we have the down payment. The monthly payment will be easy. Is this going to impact our longer term goal of buying a home? At the time, we hadn't bought a home. We didn't think it would. So we asked a series of questions for that moment, right? We made the best decision that we could. We decided to get the car. I mean, and this was after a year of my husband was researching this car, and right, it wasn't. Right. And then afterwards, you do a debriefing. How did that go? Was it a good decision? Would I do it different next time? Right? But you see in that moment, there's the body check-in, there's the money date, there's the questions to bring to help you make a good money decision in the moment. And then there's the body check-in debriefing afterwards.
Yeah, and in doing that, by you being so aware, okay, I need to go do a check-in. By not listening to that and the anxiety building and the problems that could have caused unnamed between you and your husband. Yep. And what's wrong with you? We've talked about this. And even though it's a decision that in the end of the day, you are completely on board with, it was the anxiety was there for a reason. and giving you the space to go through and to check those boxes.
Yeah.
Like, yes, this is good. I mean, I'm just imagining a completely different outcome as the two of you are driving home in this car. Had you doing this and had you not done this?
I could have been furious that he was making me do something I didn't want to do. Right? We can imagine it, right? I could be really pissed. I wasn't on board. I could be screaming, yelling. I could be, like so many different things, right? Right. So it's a culmination of a few different tools and practices that I bring to many, many different moments and scenarios. And the tool that I was trying to mention was bring a set of questions.
Yes.
When you're going to make a money purchase, I'll tell one last story, and we're going to get to 2 tools and not 3, and that's fine. There's a lot in that one, right? So
we really overpromise, don't we?
I know we keep overpromising. I worked with someone who went to the Apple store with the intention that she was going to buy the mid-range new computer, right? The mid-range price point computer. And she got in there, and of course she started working with a sales guy, and he was telling her all the features of all the different ones, and then she wanted the most pricey one. And so she had to tell the sales guy, you know what, give me a moment, I'll be back. And she had to take herself to her car to do a body check-in and check in what was going on. What did it remind herself of? Oh, I'm back in my teenager. And my God, does my teenager want what it wants, and wants the nicest and the most expensive? And, but I went in already like committing to the midpoint, so she had to do all this work with herself in the car. And then she wound up going back and got the mid price point one, and was very satisfied and happy. But her teenager needed to have a moment and have a say, and let her know and all of that. And she needed to reassure her teenager self, and right. And so that's just another version of how that can play out. Yeah.
So, Bari, I'm kind of taken, as you know, my new next big thing. That sounds so transient, but is internal family systems. And I'm just so taken how this is all baked in one form or a fashion to that process. So, for example, it's a very slow process, and finding out the body scan, what's going on in your body right now, is so important. And any images and feelings and feeling sensations is all a part of that process. And what really hit me was going out and getting in touch with this teenager.
Yeah.
In IFS, that could be an XL, it could be what's called a manager. It doesn't really matter, but it's a part of us. And you said it, that needs to have their moment.
Yeah.
It needs to have a moment to connect with, in IFS speak, self, to say, this is what's going on for me.
Yeah.
This is what happened back then. This is why it's important.
Yeah.
And to be received in compassion. Now, you didn't say that, but you emoted it.
Yeah.
Like, she didn't go out and then beat the teenager.
No.
Right?
No.
I could hear the compassion, like, yes, I get you. Yes, of course.
Yep.
Yes, I understand your story.
Yep.
And the heart feeling really seen and heard.
Yeah.
And then she could go back in and execute on the plan.
Well, I love that. I'm already doing this work that is your newest love. And, I'm sure there's a lot of training that I got from my graduate program, and, that is in that work as well. I mean, we did family system work to some degree. We did go back and scoop up your younger parts and selves and bring them with you. And, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of going back to younger selves and honoring who they were and what they needed and what they got or did not get, and what declarations were made at that time, with that's another conversation, and so on. So yes, I love that it's all baked in there in these stories that I
Yeah,
was sharing. Yeah.
it so much is. And I'll just say that in my study of IFS, it just so dovetails with about everything that I have learned in psychology and Enneagram and all the things that I've done. There's very few places where I would go, I don't know that. Well, yeah, it's really disagrees with this or that. There's some nuances where it does.
Yeah.
So here to summarize how to make really great money decisions, it's do the body check-in, which was the first tool we talked about last segment.
Yeah.
Know your numbers.
Yeah.
So and I think, and of course that goes with what we just talked about in making our numbers approachable and meaningful to us.
Yes. Right. It's learn a bookkeeping system. When you're setting up the system, rename the categories, with new names that are more of your values, adding more meaning in that way. And then there's more steps in there, obviously, of learning cash flow patterns and, all of that. And then continue. And then after body check-in, know your numbers,
The questions.
bring your questions, a couple of
And
questions.
that's a list of questions that I'm guessing you could have them written down or pull them out, but it's some touchstones
Yes.
that
Yes.
you have worked out that are in alignment with your values.
Or, I used to run into Bed Bath and Beyond, and I would go in like with one or two things on my list, and then like suddenly I wanted everything, And so it was like, okay, just stay the course. There's going to be, all these flashy, shiny things, but I came in here for these two things. And sometimes I would make it out with just those two things. And sometimes I'd make it out with one more thing or, and then we'd talk about it afterwards, me and myself. Right. But just, questions for small, medium, large money moments and decisions as touchstones. Yes.
Absolutely. Can just keep us so focused. And I like the idea of adding halt to it. And
yes. Adding halts. And then afterwards, always, again, another body check-in to debrief. How did that go? What did you learn? What would you do different next time?
What you're talking about, Bari, is really being conscious about our money decisions.
Yeah.
And not just words, right? Oh, we need to be aware. Okay, great. Next. Really, these are tools to put that into practice. They're answering that. Okay, so how do I become aware? Right?
Yes. Yeah. See, I'm a Capricorn. Okay. So, and I'm not so much into astrology. I'm a little bit, but the thing about a Capricorn is that we're tried and true. We test things over and over. We are the goats going up the mountain trail. We are in it for the long haul, slow and steady. And I just need really practical steps and tools along the way. And then I need that depth as well. But I'm going to give you all those little steps, not going to give you every single step. There's tons of things I leave out that I teach the foundation. Here's the steps, but you need to do them in your own way. That makes sense for you based on your personality and style.
Well, get Bari's book because there's even more. We didn't get to the third one. So thank you, Bari, so much for joining me. You are a wealth, just of information, but just being, and just everything you bring is just so rich. So I really appreciate you taking the time to share this with everybody. And we may be back to get to the part we didn't get to. So thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Always a pleasure.